You ready, Sheriff? All right, I'm going to call the August 10th meeting of the Macon County Board of Commissioners to order, and I'd like to welcome all of you in attendance. Thank you for being here with us. Got a good crowd tonight, a lot more than normal, and we're very happy to have you. We're going to move right along. First item are announcements. Item A, recognition of COVID call center volunteers and workers. Mr. Manager, I'm going to let you lead the way here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and as the Sheriff and Tammy are coming up, I'd just like to start by saying that I think we all can agree, statewide, nationwide, or on the community level, the COVID-19 pandemic presented the greatest challenge and continues to present challenges today. Unquestionably the greatest challenge that this community, this organization, this county has ever faced. And in light of that challenge, it was so nice, and I've never been more proud to be a part of this community and this county, to see the way that everyone had came together and continues to combat this pandemic to this day. I'd like to first start by thanking those on the front lines, our EMS, emergency management, Sheriff's Department, public health, and healthcare workers who have played such a tremendous role in mitigating the COVID-19 pandemic here in Macon County. Tonight, we're here to also recognize those behind the front lines that played a crucial role in this process. And before we talk about where we have come, I think we first need to remember where we were. On January 12th, in this boardroom, we were facing something here in Macon County that it's safe to say that we had never faced, and hope we never face again. And that was a tidal wave of COVID-19 infections. We had just saw the vaccine introduced. We had many people calling into the health department, questioning when they could get tested, where they could get tested, how they get the vaccine. Again, the vaccine had just been released, and it was a time of much uncertainty and much confusion for many. As I said, we've never been there and hope to never be there again. On January 12th, we were receiving call volume into this county of 600 to 1,000 calls a day of people questioning not only when and where they could get tested, where do they get vaccine, how do they get vaccinated. And what that was doing was it was crippling our county-wide phone system. Not only we were facing where the entire phone system in the entire county was shut down for hours at a time, sometimes days at a time. We had people calling with questions about the vaccine that were waiting on the phone for 45 minutes and then would be cut off because the phone system would collapse. And when faced with a challenge, this community, as I said, it came together to overcome this challenge. By January 16th, we had gotten that wait period down from 45 minutes to 6 seconds. Every call would be answered in 6 seconds or less. The first day that we opened the call center, 638 calls came in, all of which were answered in 6 seconds or less. And that is a trend that continued and has continued on through the pandemic, and the result of that is Macon County becoming one of the top per capita vaccinated counties in the state, as people have gotten the information they were requested. And they have gotten those resources. They had somebody to talk to. And this couldn't have been possible without a number of things. Number one, we'd like to thank Mr. Phil Drake, who graciously gave the county his facility at the Drake Education and Training Center. Not only did he give us that facility capable of handling the call volume that we were experiencing, he gave us his equipment, he gave us his staff, and never asked for anything in return. And I'll tell you what, there cannot be enough said about the graciousness and the kindness of Mr. Drake during this pandemic, and the way that he has reached out and played a role in us being able to do what we were able to do. Mr. Drake, the county employees stepped up. County employees came in from departments across the organization, donated their time on Saturdays, on holidays, to answer these phone calls and be a resource to the community and direct them, whether it be a vaccine or get a test, put them in touch with the right people so they could get registered and the vaccine would be available. We had volunteers that also assisted. We had people that the Board of Commissioners, in their foresight, recognized we needed to have a budget increase to be able to hire part-time individuals to come in and help with the call center and this large call volume that we experienced. So from where we were on January 12th, as I said, looking at a 45-minute wait time, if you could even get through to somebody at all, to a 6-second wait time, that's pretty dang good. I don't care what business you're in or what you're looking at. And it couldn't have been made possible without all these groups of people and their dedication to public service and their dedication to doing something for their community. We're here today to recognize these individuals that played a role in this call center. And the two standing up here tonight, Tammy and the sheriff, had played a crucial role as they orchestrated the call center and made that happen. They were the boots on the ground that coordinated the volunteers, the part-time individuals, and really made that call center take off. So I can't thank these two individuals enough, nor those of you sitting out here tonight. And as I said earlier, I've never been more proud to be part of this community and a part of Macon County. And I can say with certainty now that while January presented the greatest challenge that we've ever faced, it is because of these individuals, you individuals out here, whether you be a county employee, a volunteer, or Mr. Phil Drake, it's because of individuals like that that we've been able to combat and continue to combat this pandemic today. So with that being said, Sheriff, Tammy, I thank you all so much, and I'll turn it over to you at this time.
Well, if any of you have ever come to a county commissioner and spoke, and especially with a big crowd, which is, the commissioners will tell you, is very rare for this room to be filled. There's one thing you want to make sure you do is you don't get up here and say something stupid that you make sense of what you're saying. The second thing you worry about is if anybody speaks before you, you hope they don't say what you were going to say. So having said that, Mr. Manager, you were perfect in what you said. I've been a county employee for nearly 30 years, and never in my career have I been more proud of the county employees that work for the Macon County. They came together. It was a Friday at 3 o'clock on a holiday weekend that they were called in to step up and help us out for the weekend to take all these calls. We had agencies that came in without hesitation to step in to do that, and we just can't express our appreciation to those individuals for doing that and for coming in, and especially on a holiday weekend. That is really tough to get your family to do that, and we appreciate it. The IT department, the tax department, the sheriff's office, basically every agency in the county played some kind of role in it. And so you're to be commended for what you did, and we just greatly appreciate it. And we appreciate the support of our county commissioners and all our directors of all the agencies to allow us to do the things that we did. So to make sure now that I ripped it up, the only thing that's not on my thing that he said was at this time we're going to recognize and call those county employees or agencies up here to receive a pin. If the chairman would come up with us, stand, and do that, we would appreciate that. So I'm going to read each of the names, or Tammy is going to read each of the names.
I'll read the names and we'll let Commissioner Tate give out the pins. So, I'm going to move over here beside you. Kristen Fox. The right in the box, I'm sorry. And then we'll take a group picture afterwards. Jody Brock. Thank you. Nina Parrott. Thank you.
Thank you.
As you can tell, she's the wild one. But
That's right.
Thank you.
Christy
stand
K.
here. Take a picture.
Jennifer Deal, Joe Breedlove,
Don't let him talk.
Tommy Allen, Kelly Gravitt. And then we also want to recognize the county employees that could not be here tonight. So we have Michael Stacy, Lindsay Leopard, Kim Green, Andy Muncie, Amanda Nicholson, Caitlin Roper, Katrina Stover, Hannah Anderson, Stephanie Robinson, Sheila Conley, Lori Smith, Nick Nikolaev. I know I messed up that name. And then Zara Diaz Arango, Nick Burchard, and Simon Hyatt.
Good job. Thank you. We'd like to-
You guys want to join us for the picture?
We'll just stand up behind and just.
Go ahead and line up here.
Oh, pictures? Awesome. I love pictures.
Thank you, ladies.
I don't.
Don't lose your pens now.
Stand up.
Take that $2 and get a cup of coffee. Hey, settle down. Settle
I always wonder how long I stand here if everybody would just stand as long as I do. One day I'll do it.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Don't forget it. Y'all take care. They told me to smile when I come in.
So next we wanted to recognize the community volunteers who answered our call to attend a meeting to assist members of their churches, their community organizations, or their civic groups in registering folks to get their COVID-19 vaccine, and those who volunteered or became part-time employees at the call center. One of the statistics that the manager didn't share that I want to share is that of those folks that we're getting ready to recognize, they worked a total of 862 and a half hours. Wow. They answered between January the 16th and June the 18th. They answered over 23,000 phone calls, of which the majority were to get folks registered and scheduled for vaccines. And they also placed over 20,000 calls for appointment reminders and answering any questions of those that were on the wait list or general questions. And again, it's because of these individuals that the Macon County COVID-19 Vaccine Call Center was successful, and these individuals that worked so hard to meet our community need.
Well,
As we, you'll,
I left you a little something.
you left me a little something. You didn't take mine as much as you did the sheriff's. So Chairman Tate, if you'll come forward again, we'll let you hand out pins as the sheriff calls these names.
Miss Ellen Shope. Jean Pinkston. And we're going to, if you don't mind staying up here, we're going to take a picture. Jim Contz. Did I say your name wrong? Counts, okay. Maria Green. Sean Kinson. Miss Darlene Green, who made us cakes every week. I'm the oldest one of the bunch because when we didn't have cakes, I had a birthday every week. So she Ken Murphy. Uncle. Come on. He's the one that drove the farthest distance to work. Where did he come from? Colorado Springs. And Nurse Mandy Buick.
Thank you.
And do you want me to read all these names that are here? And we would like to go ahead and recognize the names of the people that are not here tonight. Jean Jordan, Regina Horner, Nurse Christopher Wallace. I keep saying nurse because while they were doing this, they were going to nursing school and then working all day and working all night. Christopher Wallace, Adele Doring, Diane White, Keith White, Brenda Garner, Paul Garner, Gail Ashurst, Randy Ashurst, Carmen Knipple, Ann Nandria, Beverly Mason, Tom Coley, Miss Lee Berger, Tara Reeves, Lauren Martinez, Daniel Waldrop, Diane Day, Charles Motley, Z. Keyser, Isabel Evans, Wanda Clark, and Bonnie Rugg. And I think it's important too that we also mention the two people, if you'd like to recognize them, the two people from Drake's that Drake's assigned to us.
Terry Breedlove and I just forgot her name. Pat, our food person who went and got our food for us every day and helped immensely at the call center with any errands, any issues that we had. And so they were great.
Awesome. Let's give them all a round of applause. So everybody will come over here and they're going to get along this wall right here with Uncle here and take a photo.
I'm good, you?
I'm Mr. Darling. All right. Come in front of me.
Stand on your tiptoes.
Oh, yeah, I like this better. Stand on the
I know, right? That's what I said.
Keep squeezing.
squeezing.
Get out. So hard to do.
Back to video, I'm sorry.
See, Sean.
Good to see you. Paul, I promise, we're almost done. I promise.
At least you're not asking for money.
We're not asking for money either this time. The last thing that we want to do is something that's really important to us. Everybody played an important role, but somebody stood out during this event, and we wanted to take time to recognize her. So they've got a script and it's written big enough I don't even have to wear my glasses. On April 28, 2021 at approximately 10:45 a.m., one of our workers at the call center, Miss Ledford, contacted an 82-year-old Macon County resident, we're just going to call her Miss D or Miss Doe, who had missed her appointment for their second COVID-19 vaccination earlier that morning. The purpose of this call was to see if Miss Doe was en route to the appointment or if she needed to reschedule. Miss D informed Miss Ledford that she was not feeling very well and was in bed. Miss Ledford indicated that she was sorry to hear this and asked if Miss D had someone to help her. Miss D shared that she lives alone and had not contacted anyone to let them know how she was. Miss Ledford quickly noticed that Miss D did not seem to be speaking clearly and was complaining of numbness on her side. Miss Ledford offered several times to call 911 for assistance, and Miss D refused. Upon ending the call, Miss Ledford informed Miss Keyser, the call center manager, who then reached out to Macon County EMS Communications Supervisor Todd Siegel, asking if a wellness safety check could be conducted on Miss D's residence. Miss Siegel recognized the name and Mr. Siegel recognized the name and contacted a family member who authorized sending an ambulance to the residents. Miss D was immediately taken to Angel Medical Center at approximately 10 p.m. that evening. And then later that night on Facebook, we saw a post on Facebook that said, "Thanks to whoever at Macon County Public Health had the wherewithal to realize that my mom was having a medical emergency while talking on her phone. You saved my mom's life." So at this time, we would like to recognize the person that had the wherewithal to make those calls. And at this time, we would like to call Frances Ledford. Ms. Ledford, on behalf of the county, all the department heads, the citizens of Macon County, we would like to award you with the Community Hero Award for your recognition for what you did that day. And we just want you to know how much we appreciate you. I saw the family this weekend, and they wanted you to know how much they appreciated you, and thank you so much.
Asking if I was going to speak, and I hadn't planned to, but I just want to say that it was a group effort. I feel like we all worked together to help this lady, and I'm so thankful that we did.
Amen.
Thank you. Good job.
Recognition of our finance department. Mr. Manager, would you like to do that? Would you like for me to?
Sure. I will,
Just give him just a second here.
okay.
Now that it's raining,
A 10% increase on hospital. 10%.
All right, Mr. Manager, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll read this news release that was issued on August the 5th, 2021 from the Government Finance Officers Association. Government Finance Officers Association of the United States and Canada has awarded the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting to Macon County for its comprehensive annual financial report for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2020. The report has been judged by an impartial panel to meet the high standards of the program, which includes demonstrating a constructive spirit of full disclosure to clearly communicate its financial story and motivate potential users and groups to read the report. The Certificate of Achievement is the highest form of recognition in the area of governmental accounting and financial reporting, and its attainment represents a significant accomplishment by government and its management. And with that being said, I would just like to say, this gets read every year about this time because we get this every year. Because we have the greatest finance department, the greatest finance director anywhere. I'd put them up against anyone, anywhere in the state of North Carolina. They play such an important role in this organization. And Lori, it never gets old reading this, and I just want you to know how much as manager that I appreciate you and everything that your staff does, and we couldn't do it without you.
You got an extra pen?
We'll get one.
Have them stand up.
Finance officer.
Are they here?
Lori is.
You don't want to hear Lori from the department?
I didn't
She's
know this
got-
was, I didn't know this was gonna happen.
She's got a speech
Good
plan.
job.
Go ahead, Lori.
Unlike the sheriff, I was going to say the same thing, but Derek beat me to it. So. Good job, Lori.
Thank you.
Kudos to you. Kudos to your staff.
Very important.
All right, I had requested that our Macon County Health Director, Kathy McGowan, be here tonight to give us an update in COVID. If those of y'all that have been watching the statistics that are generally produced every afternoon, we've seen a spike in cases. But I believe Kathy had a health issue and was going to call in.
She's hurt her shoulder and she should be calling right now.
Okay.
Who's she gonna call?
Ghostbusters. She's calling.
Walked in the past.
She's calling into the main line right there by the chair.
Get that, Jenny. I don't know who that is.
Hey, Kathy.
Hi.
Hey, thank you for calling in, and I'll be quiet and listen to your update if you don't mind.
Sure.
Please proceed.
Okay, so we definitely are seeing an increase in cases over the last week specifically. Over this past weekend, we jumped from under 100 cases to now today we're at 163 active cases. And so I'm getting a little bit of feedback. Hang on just one second. Okay. Can you hear me still?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So yes, we are seeing an increase in cases. You know, we typically run behind most other counties in the state, and we could see it coming. Other counties were getting more cases, and now it's hit us, and we're definitely seeing an increase. We have the only thing is we're not seeing as much of an increase in the request for vaccine, which we wish we would see a lot more people interested in getting the vaccine. So we're dealing with the hospitals are getting their ICUs full, and you know, we're having an increased demand in testing. We're testing at least 4 days a week right now, and trying to see if we can test 5 days a week, depending on the level of staff that we have here helping us here. So we're trying to meet the demand for testing.
All right.
Of course, the schools are dealing with getting back to school and the question about masks, and their board meets next Monday, and we'll be addressing that then again.
Okay.
Kathy,
Yes.
this is Ronnie Beal. Do you track of the 163, how many of those are unvaccinated and vaccinated? Did you track that?
We do keep up with it. We're not producing statistics. We definitely have seen some breakthrough cases. Not a lot. When I'm watching it, you know, we'll have a couple, and it's each of the 3 different vaccines have had breakthrough cases. None of the breakthrough cases that we have been following have ended up in the hospital. So even though they're having breakthrough cases, their symptoms aren't as bad, and they're not having a series of health issues with that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Any further questions from the board? Kathy, please keep us posted, and if you think there's anything we need to be doing as a board in general to help our community, please keep us in the loop with your team's thoughts.
I sure will. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right. We'll all rise. Are there any other announcements? I'm sorry, before we move on. That was a busy announcement period.
Mr. Chairman, the county manager and myself will be leaving in the morning. There are some very important legislative items that we'll be talking about in Wilmington. Some of those we'll be talking about here shortly, and there's some other very important things that affect rural counties that's legislative, that's in the legislature right now. So we look forward to representing the county the best we can with that.
We'll all rise, we'll observe a moment of silence, and I'm going to ask Commissioner Young to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner. We're going to enter our public comment period. First up is Tom Henderson regarding excessive dog barking. Welcome.
Thank you,
Mr.
sir.
Henderson. Yes, sir.
Thank you. In 2015, I bought about 3 acres of land off of Coon Creek Road. Then I saved every bit of money I could. And in August of 2019, I put a 400 square foot cabin on it and moved into it in November that year. Then in April of the next year, my neighbor obtained coon dogs and penned them up outside. Since then, his dogs have barked for hours at a time. We've tried sitting on our back deck and would have to go inside because the noise was so annoying. It was loud. We could even hear it when we tried to go to sleep inside our cabin with the windows closed. They would bark day and night. I called the sheriff's office. They told me nothing could be done. I called animal control, and they said the same thing. We called into a county commissioner meeting, and they said that nothing could be done. I've also spoken to the county manager, and he said basically the same thing. Neither the Macon County nuisance ordinance nor the animal control ordinance mentioned excessive dog barking. Senator Carl Gillespie researched the matter for me and said that there is no reason why Macon County cannot enforce an ordinance against excessive dog barking. I'm asking that it be included in the animal control ordinance so that excessive dog barking can be stopped. It is not fair for someone to have to put up with that. I'm not against someone having dogs penned up outside. But dog owners have a responsibility to the welfare of their animals and also not to irritate their neighbors with them. They can be trained not to bark. Also, bark collars and other electronic devices can be used to stop their barking. If an officer confirms a complaint, they should be able to enforce the ordinance. My suggestion is to amend the animal control ordinance to be enforced by animal control officers. A violation would be any dog barking frequently for a period of more than 20 minutes. Issue a written warning for the first offense and then give them 30 days to rectify the situation. Then for every offense after that, impose a $50 fine per occurrence, 1 occurrence per day, with no limit. Do not put a monetary limit on total fines. If you do, the problem may not get solved because some people would rather pay the money than fix the problem. Other counties in North Carolina have ordinances against excessive dog barking. So can Macon County. Do not exclude sporting dogs. It is okay for them to bark on the hunt, but not while penned up. I believe many residents of Macon County would appreciate changing the current ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Just for your commissioner's reference, we have several people signed up to discuss this topic tonight, so we won't hold our comments unless there's a specific question until we get done how we might proceed. Okay. Anita Martin.
I'm here to address a problem with a specific commissioner, Josh Young.
He has recently bought property in our subdivision and was sent a notice that we were having a homeowners meeting to finalize the revision to restrictions. And I'm not expecting you guys to do anything about it. It's just something I felt like all of you commissioners needed to know, and that the citizens of Macon County need to know. When he called my house, because my number and Ann DeHay's number was on the slip in case you weren't going to be able to show or you needed directions to where the meeting was being held. So he called my house and said he had a problem with some of the revisions, and I told him you need to show up then and vote at the homeowners meeting. And I tried to explain to him what the problem was, and he didn't want to hear it. He didn't want to hear why we were trying to get these restrictions revised. We've been working with an attorney, so everything we're doing has been legal. So when I said, when we moved into this subdivision, we all bought here because there were restrictions. And he said, you're the problem. It's you people that have moved in here that are trying to change everything. I was born and raised here, and you people are coming in to try to change things. Well, we were changing things because of problems we were experiencing in the neighborhood. He does not live in the neighborhood. He is selling the house, so he has no stake in what is going on in that neighborhood. But for him to tell me that his rights, because he was born and raised here, are better than my rights, because I've only lived here about 20 years, is total arrogance. And then he proceeded to tell me that we could vote all we wanted to, and then we could take the votes and put them where we wanted to. So in order for him to represent the people of Macon County, that is a terrible attitude. And the arrogance that he shows, and he didn't show up, the rules passed, and there were some that were changed because of people who showed up for the meeting and voiced their opinion. But it's total arrogance for him to say that.
Ms. Martin, I'm going to interrupt. And is this, I I understand your grievance with Commissioner Young, but I don't know if this is the place for you to be.
Where else am I going to do it?
You can take it up with him, but this is a community group for the betterment of Macon County as a whole.
Okay, and for the betterment of Macon County, we need to have commissioners that represent everyone.
Okay, they do that at our elections.
Right, and I will make sure that the people in Macon County know who he thinks he represents and who he doesn't.
Okay, thank you.
Can I make a few comments?
Sure.
Mrs. Anita, have you tried to contact me in regards to this issue since our initial conversation?
No, because you didn't show up to the meeting.
So let's go back. I know there's a lot of emotions right here.
No, we're not going to do this because you wouldn't speak to me. You wouldn't show up at the meeting, and now your buddy here has said that we don't need to do this because they're going to take up for you.
Ladies and gentlemen, all I want to say is you see the issue right here. I've tried to be transparent.
No, you didn't. You started to yell at me, and I had to hang up on you on the phone.
All right, Felicia Henderson.
I'm going to let Hank speak for me.
Okay. Welcome, Hank. What is your last name, Hank?
Holly, H-A-L-L-E.
Okay. Are you Henry?
I am.
Henry House. Okay, I've got you down here, but so I'm going to take. Okay.
Yes.
I'm with you. I'll just remove you off the list.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Frank. How do you spell your last name?
H-A-L-L-E.
Gotcha. Thank you.
You bet. Ma'am, gentlemen, distinguished voters. I like guns. I like God. I like country music. I like monk music.
Amen.
I am a strong advocate of property rights. But I got to tell you, property rights end at the property. I commiserate with this gentleman. I will not go so far as to tell you neighbors, as I live in a litigious neighborhood. I have dogs who are afraid to death of gunshots. They're little pet animals. Lady down the street tells me she can't sleep because of the dogs that bark continually. Not for 2 hours at a time, but for 24 hours at a time. And they're not one dog, there are 2 dogs.
There's 4.
Yes, ma'am. There are 4. I grew up a hunter. I understand hunting. I understand hunting dogs. I was a farm kid in Wisconsin. I don't have the privilege, and I consider it that, of having been here 20 years. I've been here 7 months, and I'm not about to tell you how to run your county and how to run your life, so I'm still learning. But the dog problem is severe, and it's continuing. And I would ask you to carefully consider little old ladies who can't sleep, pet dogs who are afraid of gunshots, afraid of big dogs that on occasion get loose, and they're massive animals. I put up no hunting, no trespassing, and I'm not for taking deer out of season. I'm not for taking little animals at all. But it's the dogs that I'm here to ask you to give careful consideration to tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ain't it amazing, Frank, that they can bark and never take a breath?
And I know the seriousness of it. At my age, I know the seriousness of not being able to take a breath.
Yeah, and the dogs, but these dogs don't have to take a breath. I don't understand that. They can bark continually
Oh, they do.
and never breathe.
I wish I were in that kind of shape.
I wish I was too.
All right, gentlemen, is that something we want to send to the planning board for review? I don't know if y'all have been watching.
But to the attorney, I think we should, Mr. Chairman, I think the attorney should have it, just to see what, because we do have a large hunting population. If those dogs are penned, I'm not so sure. So I'd let our attorney have a look at it, Mr. Chairman, first.
Yeah, I'll let the board make a decision on that. It doesn't matter to me. I don't know if you've watched your emails this past week, the last several weeks, but I've been pretty busy with similar issues. So. But I'm happy with whatever this board thinks best, how to proceed.
Can I say one thing?
Yes, sir.
I think Jack's still here, Jack Morgan back here. When I served on the planning board, when you use the word coon dog, I believe they're protected by law. Jack, right or wrong? I'm not sure the reference there, Mr.
We've researched it.
Okay.
I talked to Senator Gillespie, and the protection is not for coon dogs to bark continuously while in their pens. There's not protection for that. Maybe when they're on the hunt, you can't complain about them barking, because that's what they do.
They can't hunt in neighborhoods.
That's
we
their,
live in a neighborhood.
That's their purpose. But while they're penned up 24 hours a day and they're barking continuously for hours,
It's
that's
terrible.
not covered. And I mean, I talked to Carl Gillespie about that. He researched the matter and sent me a huge thing. I forwarded the email to some of you guys. And you can look at that and confirm what I said.
Appreciate it. I just
You're welcome.
remember there was something about the word coon dog.
There's been discussion about that, and there's a perception about that, and there's some things that you can't control because of sporting dogs. They call them sporting dogs. And a coon dog is a sporting dog. So, but it's not covering that particular issue.
Have you made an effort to reach out to the owner of the dogs and?
Oh yeah.
Well,
yeah. They moved the cage. They moved the pens further towards our house.
And it's
Not only that, but there's the possibility, gentlemen and ma'am, there's the possibility that there are neighbors who claim they have been shot at. There is a junk pile that was placed alongside the road. The possibility of using these coon hounds, these hunting dogs, as a weapon, a weapon of retaliation is there. And it's not only are they making noise, but can they be prompted to make noise? And I am one who believes, and many of my neighbors believe, that is the case.
And just one last thing. If you ignore this issue, it's opening up a possible avenue of confrontation between neighbors. And that can escalate possibly into violence sometimes. And you don't want that to go there. So if you can do something about the barking to start with, you can nip that problem in the bud and just prevent that from ever happening.
And if there's just a stipulation added into the law that they could bark only on the hunt, that would make a big difference, I think, not in a pen, you know, while they're in a neighborhood.
All right, thoughts? We've got a recommendation by Commissioner Bill, whether county attorney review the issue.
And if you read our noise ordinance, Mr. Chairman, if you read it close, this is what it says. Loud, unnecessary, and disturbing noise. As used herein, the term loud, unnecessary, and disturbing noise shall mean any noise intentionally created which because of the volume level, duration, and or character of noise disturbs, injures, or endangers the comfort, health, peace, or safety of reasonable persons of ordinary sensibilities in the county. That's what it says now. So I think what the definitions we'll have to struggle with is what the term excessive. You could put a time limit on it, but that's
well, the reason I brought
hard.
up the time limit is to make it something objective that law enforcement can act on. So the subjectivity of the problem is what's probably holding everybody back. So law enforcement won't do anything because they don't feel like they can. They don't have the authority to do it. Animal control feels the same way. So if they feel that way, then there's something wrong with the wording of either the noise ordinance or the animal control ordinance. Now, I think that it should be animal control ordinance because animal control officers are more skilled at handling problems with animals. And when they go to check on an animal about this type of situation, they can also check on the welfare of the animal and making sure that they are well cared for. Maybe that's the reason why they're barking, is because they're being neglected or without food or water or something like, or shelter. So I think that is the most appropriate person to leave the regular law enforcement to do the other things and give them the authority to actually issue a citation, a warning, which gives the owner 30 days to get it fixed. Either train the dogs, get some type of device to stop the barking, change something. But after that 30 days, it needs to stop.
Right.
I think it's reasonable.
Any other comments? Let our county attorney review the situation and provide a recommendation.
I'm not real sure what my direction. So, I can review it, but I don't know what it is you want. I do have comments about that I would not want to make in public, that I would like to keep attorney-client privileged as far as dog barking ordinances. I would make the comment that what I've found to be actually what's worked the best as far as clients that I've had is the private civil action against the neighbor, because it makes it less subjective. If they don't hire an attorney, they're going to have orders against them requiring them to button up the dogs, and if they don't, then they can be found in contempt of court. Contempt of court's a criminal charge.
Even if there's no law against it?
Sure, yeah,
Okay.
that can still be.
Well, I don't understand why other counties can enforce these ordinances in their own counties and why Macon County
Well,
cannot.
my comment has to do with the enforcement, and that's the most difficult part.
Yeah.
Because it is a subjective standard, and
Right.
when you start applying subjective standards to laws that a judge then has to decide based upon oral testimony, it just becomes kind of a crapshoot, and the district court judges are like, okay, whatever.
Well, that's
don't have time to do
understandable.
that. And so that's just what I was getting at,
Right.
and the sheriff can attest that, there's trying to enforce an ordinance as opposed to a state criminal citation is extremely difficult. And so with that, I'll leave it at that, and I'll explain more to the commissioners and on the attorney-client privilege end of that, just so I'm not making public some of the other issues that are involved in that. But that's what I found that has worked the best as far as personal clients of mine.
Well, bottom line is, it's not fair for me to have to stay inside and not be able to enjoy my property that I paid for. I'm entitled to enjoy my property. That's right.
I agree with you.
And that is directly infringing on my right.
Yep.
Not only rights, but the right of peace and tranquility is guaranteed.
Right.
For a reasonable person.
We hear you. We
Okay.
will discuss it later tonight and decide
Thank you.
a way of action. But yeah, thank you all. Thank you for bringing it to our attention. Gene Pinkston. Welcome, Gene.
Apologize for my phone. Thank you, everybody, for allowing me to be a tiny, small part of this. It really was a blessing to me to get to work with a group of people and do this endeavor. And while I was here tonight, I just wanted to say to you that I entreat you, I plead with you as a board to look at the masking issue and give some advice and direction, if at all possible, toward masking in our community as much as possible and masking in this educational settings as much as possible. My daughter works at a major medical university hospital in the state as a healthcare provider in the intensive care unit for COVID patients. And I can tell you that 100% of their COVID patients are unvaccinated at present. Their numbers have doubled, tripled, and are quadrupling. So it's not here yet, but we're not in bubble wrap. We're blessed to be where we are. But as a citizen and as a mother, wife, a grandmother to children who are not of age that can be vaccinated, I would like for them to be safe. So as I sit here and listen to, and I care very much about your dog problems and those rights, but I really feel like our children, our vulnerable children in our community, have the right to be protected to the best of our ability. And I ask you to please consider talking about it, discussing it here or in private meeting, and come forth with some suggestions for all the different departments and for the Board of Education. Thank you for indulging me and being patient with me.
That'll be a topic Monday night at the Board of Education meeting.
I would like for them to have your influence, if at all possible, and know your feeling. And I would like to think that your feeling and direction would be to encourage them to be cautious, because some things we don't get a good do-over. And while I think we did very well in our early stages of vaccination, I think we are far from the mark where we need to be to keep our community safe.
It's definitely an interesting conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gene.
All right, anyone else like to address the board? Going once, going twice? All right. Pass this down. Any additions to the agenda?
Do have one redaction, Mr. Chairman. If we
Redaction, you said?
Yes, 11C.
11C.
Remove, did you say?
Yep.
Sounds like we will be having a closed session.
Mr. Chairman, I have an addition.
In addition, okay, Laura.
Yeah. Under consent agenda budget amendments, if you could add numbers 32 and 33. I had placed a copy of those on your computer screen.
Received. Okay, thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
Anything else?
The brief conversation about the Nantahala project, it's not on the agenda. And
Okay, let's put it as, it's under old business, let's put it as 10B.
okay. You staying around for a little while, Jack?
Yep.
Anything else? All right, can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Commissioner Higdon. Second by Commissioner Shields. All in favor signify by raising your hand.
Aye.
All right, under reports and presentations, a resolution in support of closing North Carolina's health insurance gap. Commissioner Bill.
Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen, we're privileged tonight to have Mr. Casey Cooper. He is the Chief Executive Officer of the Cherokee Indian Hospital in Cherokee. He serves, the hospital serves about 14,000 members of the Eastern Band, and Mr. Cooper has been very active in not only in Cherokee but in West North Carolina in working to provide better health care, not only health care physically, but for the mental that we've worked on through the years. So, Mr. Cooper, welcome, and you have the floor, sir. Welcome to Macon County.
Thank you, Mr. Bell, and thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, for the opportunity to come before you. You've already had a pretty eventful evening, and so I will try to get through this as quick as I can. And in the interest of efficiency, I will just jump right to the punchline. The punchline is that it's my hope that at the conclusion of this presentation tonight, that you'll feel compelled to support a resolution to help close the coverage gap in North Carolina. And I'm asking this for a number of reasons. I don't know if this is available on your screens in front of you.
It is.
Yes. And I'm fully vaccinated. I've wanted to be respectful. I understand you guys are having an uptick in the virus over here as we are in Cherokee. But so on this first slide that you see, that there's some data that I'm going to share with you tonight. The first of which is on this slide, and all of the data that I'm going to share with you tonight comes primarily from three sources. First is some research that was commissioned by the Cone Health Foundation and Kate B. Reynolds Foundation, and the research was actually conducted by George Washington University. The second set of data will come from Georgetown University, and then finally there's some data in here that's from the Governor's Task Force for Closing the Coverage Gap. So you can see here this data comes from the Cone Health Report. This data has been shared pretty widely across the state, and to my knowledge has not been contested or questioned by anybody. But it's estimated that in Macon County, about 21.7% of your working non-elderly adults are uninsured, and that closing the coverage gap could lead to providing coverage for about 1,300 of your citizens, creating about 62 jobs and about 169,000 in county revenues and about 10 million a year in new business activity. For the Eastern Band, we feel pretty confident that we've got about 1,000 individuals who are working adults who would qualify for expansion if North Carolina were to expand, and that represents an opportunity cost for us of about $7 million a year. Actually, it's more than an opportunity cost. It's an unfunded expense that we have, and I'll explain a little bit more about that to you a little bit later. The $7 million a year the Eastern Band is funding, it should be funded by the federal government, but it's not. The Eastern Band is funding it, and that's $7 million a year that the Eastern Band could be investing in regional initiatives such as housing, infrastructure, broadband, jobs creation, etc. Again, you can see that the counties in western North Carolina are disproportionately affected by the lack of coverage for working adults. And Macon County is at 21.7%, and that puts you in the top 15. You just missed the top 10, but not by much. So what is the problem? Well, the problem is there's this horrible coverage gap for folks, and so if you make a little bit too much money to qualify for Medicaid, but you don't make enough money to qualify for the tax incentives on the exchange, then you fall in this gap where coverage is completely unaffordable. It's just not affordable for folks. And so you can see in this table that if you're an individual, let's say you're a single parent with a couple of kids, and you work in environmental services, or you work in food service, or if you're a laborer, you are in this coverage gap and you cannot afford to buy health insurance on the exchange. And too many of our mamas in Western North Carolina are taking care of babies that have Medicaid, but mamas don't qualify, and these mamas don't have coverage. And I'll show you a little bit more data in a minute that shows you that women are disproportionately affected by this. So this is what it looks like when you fall in the coverage gap. You could have you could be making minimum wage and have annual earnings of about $13,000 a year, but you're in that coverage gap. You don't qualify for the tax credits or the incentives to have affordable insurance on the exchange, and you make too much money for Medicaid, so you're just stuck. And I know you guys are familiar with this. I know that I'm sure all of you have friends and family and neighbors who don't have coverage right now. And if they're in this income bracket, they are one accident or one chronic disease or one acute illness away from bankruptcy. It's just the reality of it. So one of the misconceptions about closing the coverage gap is that the folks that are uninsured are too trifling to work, and it's simply not true. The data clearly demonstrates that the majority of folks that are uncovered are working. Unfortunately, they're working and they're working poor, or they're working for cash, or they're doing a number of other things where their income just doesn't make it possible for them to provide coverage for themselves or in some cases their families. You can see that the uninsured, they represent all different sectors or all different industries, with the highest proportion of them being in food service. And I don't know if you guys are feeling this in Macon County, but over in Cherokee, we are struggling to even get folks to work in food service right now because the wages are so low, and it's just difficult. So in this graph, you can see now we're switching now. This is some data that came from Georgetown University, and you can see that even though African Americans represent somewhere around 25% of the state's population, they are overrepresented in some of these sectors, but they do not represent the majority of the uninsured. And you can see, with the exception of manufacturing from this graph, that it is white working folk who represent the largest proportion of the uninsured. And when you look at this data by gender, you can see that with the exception of administration, support, and waste management, women represent the largest proportion of the uninsured. So that's why I say it's most of the time it's mamas who are taking care of babies who still have Medicaid. They got their babies covered. They're getting well child visits for their babies, but these mamas are going without coverage. And it's also veterans. Unfortunately, North Carolina has 7% of its veterans do not have health insurance coverage, and this is another misconception. A lot of people think that if you're a veteran, you have coverage, but if you don't have service-connected eligibility, you really don't have coverage at all. So another thing that this lack of coverage does is it puts a horrible burden on counties and your jails and your sheriff's departments. And I know that you guys know this. This is some data from Care for Carolinas. It may not be exactly what you're experiencing currently, but we know that providing health care for your inmates is a terrible, terrible financial burden on county budgets. And it's estimated that Medicaid expansion could provide a tremendous amount of relief or alleviate this financial burden on the counties in providing health care for inmates. Other folks that are disproportionately affected are those folks that struggle with mental illness. And I have permission from my friend Albert Hartline's son, Troy. I want to tell you a little bit about Albert Hartline just a second. In 2006, Albert Hartline was inducted into the Jackson County Hall of Fame. Graduated high school with Albert. He's the first state champion in wrestling in the Jackson County school systems. The first person to win a state title. Several months ago, Albert struggled with depression until he finally took his own life after shooting his neighbor. In the 8 months prior to this happening, Albert had been admitted to the hospital 9 times and had been released within 72 hours all 9 times. And Albert spiraled into the depths of depression because he was diagnosed with cancer and he had no insurance coverage. Several years ago, he called me on the phone and he said, "Coop," that's why he always called me. He said, "Coop, I need some help. He said, man, something's wrong with me bad. He said, but I can't afford to go to the doctor. So I called Steve Heatherly, the CEO at Duke Life Point, who's my friend, who we went to school with. And Steve said, tell him to come on to the ER. We'll take care of him, and we'll do our best to get his care paid for through a charity care program. So he went into the hospital. He got diagnosed with cancer. And he never went back because he had watched his dad go bankrupt fighting colon cancer. His dad had over close to $500,000 in bills, and basically bankrupt his mom and his daddy. And Albert knew that was his fate. So he went into this downward spiral of drinking himself to death until ultimately he took his own life. And I believe that he is a victim of not having health insurance coverage. And he was a hard worker. This was not a lazy guy. This was a guy that was disciplined, worked hard, worked for a construction company. The other thing that closing the coverage gap does is closing the coverage gap will protect your small rural hospitals. 82% of the rural hospital closures nationwide have happened in non-expansion states. This is no secret to any of us, and you folks have done an amazing job of fighting to keep your hospital. You've done a really good job of trying to protect your health services for your community, and closing the coverage gap would certainly help. And I know it's clear, it's obvious, but here's the reality of it. Rural hospitals operate on very thin operating margins. Many times their margins are negative. And the difference between having a negative margin and a positive operating margin is just a few covered folks. The more folks you can bring into your system that have health insurance coverage are more people that you can use to offset the loss you're going to have from the uncompensated care. And rural hospitals are on a razor's edge. So here's another misconception. There's another misconception. The state of North Carolina can't afford it. You guys may have heard these themes, but here's the reality of it. There's 1.2 million people in North Carolina who would qualify for Medicaid if North Carolina expanded. And the cost at about year 3 would get up to about $5 billion a year, 90% of which would be paid for by the feds. There's a 90% federal match for the expansion population. So the state burden would only be 10%. And the state has already identified through a number of different ways that it would fund that 10%. Through premium tax collections on the health plans. Now that we've got Medicaid transformation and you've got all these PHPs managing Medicaid, there's going to be a lot of opportunity for revenue from premium tax collections, hospital assessments, other types of assessments, and hospital offsets. This is not uncommon. You can see in this slide that 5 of the states managed to cover 100% of the state's 10% match through different types of assessments. And the data's pretty clear. And North Carolina's already mapped out a way that it too could cover 100% of the state's 10% match. So it's clearly affordable. In addition to that, there's the administration is estimating these offsets. So 56 million offset mental health because you'd have more people that had Medicaid, therefore there'd be fewer folks using your state dollars, using your state Medicaid dollars. You'd have savings or increased revenue from the tax premiums, and you would have savings. It's estimated $10 million of savings in your public safety budgets across the state because more of your inmates would have Medicaid. So in addition to that, not only does it appear that it's affordable into the future, but now is exactly the right time for North Carolina to expand because there is an additional $1.7 billion worth of incentives for the state of North Carolina if it expands Medicaid. And here's how that works. In one of the stimulus packages that just passed, there was an incentive for all the states that have not expanded, and the incentive is an increase of an additional 5% match on your current Medicaid population. So in North Carolina, I think the state match is 67%, so that would increase by 5% on your regular Medicaid. That increase by 5% is estimated to be $1.7 billion over the 8 quarters following expansion. And that $1.7 billion has been estimated to cover the state's share for 6 years. That gives the hospitals and the health plans 6 years to ramp up and to be able to pay the assessments that would offset the state's burden and state share. So there's no question about it. It's not only is it affordable, this is exactly the right time for the state to do it. So another concern that you'll hear is you'll hear folks say, well, what if the feds go back on their word? What if the federal government decides it don't want to fund that 90% in the future? Well, anything's possible, but it's not likely. This is language directly from Section 1905 at 42 U.S.C. 1369. This is the Social Security Act. So when the Affordable Care Act passed, and it guaranteed the match, and you'll see here, and you can see in bullet number E, that the match that is guaranteed to the states is 90% for the calendar quarters in 2020 and every year thereafter. So is it possible that the feds would decide not to fund this in the future? It's possible, but it, of course, would literally take an act of Congress, and it would require an amendment to the Social Security Act. So the 90% match is just as guaranteed as the Medicaid program itself is. Okay. So that's the first part of the presentation. I'm going to pivot now, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the Cherokee Indian Hospital System, and I'm going to tell you why this is so important to us, and I'll try to get through this really quick. So, as Mr. Beal mentioned to you, I'm the CEO of the Cherokee Indian Hospital. We're about a $100 million a year organization, about 700 employees, and we've got locations in Cherokee and Graham and Cherokee County, Swain County, Swain County, Cherokee, and Graham. And one of the things that we just completed was a $45 million crisis stabilization unit. It's a 14-bed locked facility with 4 high acuity beds. And when the tribe made the decision to build this facility, there were a couple of things that it acknowledged in building this facility. Number one, it acknowledged that it would have to build it with all tribal money. There's no federal money available to do this with, and no state funds. Number two, the tribe committed that it would have to fund the operating expense until Medicaid expansion passed, because the majority of the population that need these services are below 100% of the federal poverty level, and they are adults. So the majority of the folks that we're talking about that struggle with behavioral health and substance use disorders would qualify for Medicaid expansion. So the tribe acknowledged that it would have to provide the capital and the operating funding, and the tribe also directed us to overbuild the facility, if you will, so that we had expansion capability in future years. So we forecasted our demand for the service. We estimated our demand. We took our demand all the way up to the 75th percentile of what our average daily census was, and we built it at 14 beds, and we have available capacity now. We could be a regional partner to the counties in western North Carolina right now and take some of the burden off your sheriff's departments and take some of the burden out of your emergency rooms right now if those folks had coverage. We provide a lot of other behavioral health services. I'll skip through this. This pie chart that you see just shows you the proportion of our total gross revenue that is represented by net patient service revenue. And the reason that we are so dependent on Medicaid revenue is because the Indian Health Service, a little small agency within Health and Human Services, the Indian Health Service is only funded today at about $4,000 per capita. That's less than the annual expense per capita for inmate health care. Okay, so $4,000 per capita for the entire Indian Health Service. Congress acknowledged this and has acknowledged this by making it possible for Indian health systems to bill Medicaid and Medicare to supplement their budgets. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that. But why is there an Indian Health Service to begin with? Well, this is a map of the original Cherokee Nation, and many of you have probably seen this map. But in this map, you can actually see the land that was ceded or lost to the United States, or in some cases even to the King of England, in 36 successive treaties. And down at the bottom at 6 o'clock on your map, you see the Treaty of New Echota, and that was the last treaty between the Cherokee Nation and the United States that ceded the remainder of the land. Many of you are familiar with that. And you know that Macon County was a significant portion of that remaining tract of land that was ceded in the Treaty of New Echota in 1838. There were treaties like this that were entered into with tribes all across the nation, and in more than 22 of these treaties between tribes in the United States, the provision of health care was negotiated as recompense for the genocide and the loss of land that took place. That's why the United States has a legal and moral obligation to providing health care for American Indians and Alaska Natives. And it is further memorialized through a long legislative history, and I won't go through all this with you, but there's a very detailed, long legislative history beginning in the treaty period and then kind of founding with the Snyder Act of 1921 all the way through provisions in the Affordable Care Act. But here's the most important part of it. There were 2 amendments to the Social Security Act, Congress carried out, if you will, and that was in Section 1911. Congress actually gave the Indian Health Service the authority to bill Medicaid and Medicare because the Indian Health Service was so horribly underfunded. And this was Congress's intent to try to fully fund the need. And then later, Congress amended the Social Security Act again and guaranteed the states 100% federal match for all of the Medicaid expense of treating American Indians and Alaska Natives, so there's no burden to the state. Now let me back up and underscore this for you. I mentioned to you earlier that by not expanding Medicaid in North Carolina, it's costing us $7 million a year. And that $7 million a year would cost the state nothing. Because of this amendment in the Social Security Act, the feds would reimburse the state 100% of that amount. Okay, so I'll just kind of wrap up here. Again, we have about 1,000 patients that are below 138% FPL and that do not have coverage. It's costing us about $7 million a year. It would cost the state nothing because of the FMAP, and barriers to enrollment do not decrease demand in our system, and it doesn't decrease utilization or cost. The Eastern Band is actually funding this burden. So let me just wrap up by summarizing those 3 misconceptions that I began with. The first misconception is that taxpayer dollars will be spent on childless, able-bodied adults who choose not to work, and it's not true. The data proves it. Most of these folks are working. Another misconception is that the state match is unaffordable and not sustainable, and that's simply not true. The state match is certainly affordable. As a matter of fact, there's a clear path forward to not only generate an additional $1.7 billion in revenue for the 8 quarters following the expansion, but there's also a clear path forward to fully fund this without any increased cost to the state at all. And then finally, the 90% federal match might go away, and in the absence of an amendment to the Social Security Act, that's simply not true either. So with that, Mr. Chairman, thank you for your time, Mr. Bill, and for the opportunity. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Mr. Cooper, I've spoken with Senator Corbin about this. He told me the counties that had passed it, he'd already received resolutions from. Can you reiterate which counties those were?
Yes, this presentation has been shared with Swain, Jackson, and Haywood. Swain and Jackson passed the resolutions. Haywood has it on their agenda this coming month at their next meeting, I think.
Graham had.
I'm sorry, and Graham actually passed it more than a year ago.
And Cherokee has it on there. But just to reiterate what Mr. Cooper said this week, talking about veterans. So we had a veteran in the ER for 4 days. He was not service connected. Really nowhere to go. That was just the veterans. We have another veteran there tonight with 3 other folks in our ER. They will all be sent for 72 hours and come home. They'll be given a pamphlet and sent home. They'll be dealing, if the sheriff was here, would tell you that they'd be dealing with the same problems. We do have some programs available, but to have this facility, Mr. Cooper, that not only services the Eastern Band but can serve their region. 14, for instance, Haywood County has 15 beds. To my knowledge, Macon County has never had an opportunity to use those 15 beds. Why? Because they're occupied by local residents. And so this problem, that's just the edge of it. And I also talked to Senator Corbin and some other folks, and you know, I think 38 states now have Medicaid expansion they see what we see.
Right.
And that's one of the things we're going to be presenting Saturday morning in Wilmington, is we cannot compete with these metropolitan counties.
Right.
Rural counties, when you go to the quota system for healthcare, we're out of the loop. So if this would help us provide for our folks, and it will, the statistics show that, and we think it's got a real good shot, as does Senator Corbin, of coming to fruition. So we hope for our folks that we all represent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Mr. Chairman?
Great presentation, just the wrong audience. This resolution, as most resolutions we entertain, is not very meaningful at a state level. Closing the gap, expanding Medicaid has been a topic for many years, as you well know. And I think it's a decision that will be made at the state level. One thing did catch my attention. You said that the 10% would be the 10%, federal government picking up 90%. No new Macon County taxes, but that 90% is revenue from a tax somewhere. The 10% would be made up by a small assessment on healthcare providers, which you are one, and hospitals. And you'd mentioned they're working on a razor thin margin now. How will that, and then you said that the 10% in your presentation would be revenue from another source.
All right, so let me attempt to kind of address all three of those. The first one is, I thought I was hearing you say that the 90% has to be covered by taxes from somewhere, and you are correct about that. As a matter of fact, North Carolina citizens are already paying that tax. This won't result in an increased tax to North Carolina citizens. As a matter of fact, at this time, all 50 states are paying taxes, but there are 12 states that are not benefiting from the taxes that they're actually paying in the federal system. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the 10% state match. The hospitals in North Carolina already pay assessments. The hospitals choose to pay an assessment because it increases the state's match, and it makes it possible for the state of North Carolina to pull down a larger amount of federal dollars. So the hospitals already do it. Now, it is proportionate, the amount of assessment they pay. So if you've got a small rural hospital that's on a thin margin or a negative margin, they're not paying an assessment. The majority of the assessments are going to be paid by the larger health systems.
What's your standing with the state? Have you made this presentation to the state, the people who will actually be, that have
Yes.
voted on this numerous times?
Yeah, so thank you for that. And I'm sure you're aware that the House actually passed a bill, House Bill 655, I think, in 2019, that actually proposed to do just this. Unfortunately, it didn't make it out of the Senate. So there is bipartisan support in the House, and at least in 2019 for this. And I think you bring up a good point, Mr. Higdon, why this audience? Well, I think it's important at the grassroots level that we provide our local representatives with some support and some input, and we let our preferences be known to our elected representatives. So if it was this body's desire to pass the resolution and provide Senator Corbin with the direction and the cover that he needs to go to Raleigh and advocate for something that may be unpopular in his party, but he needs to know where his constituents stand. And that's the intent for being here.
Good presentation.
Yeah.
I think you've done this before.
So I don't really want to start a debate, but I do have a couple questions in regards to Medicaid. And like our hospital now being a for-profit, like the layman's term from what I've been explained to, or how I've been explained, like labor and delivery has essentially been omitted from our hospital because Medicaid does not pay adequate wages to sustain labor and delivery for our local hospital. So I guess what I'm asking is it a good thing to expand Medicare and Medicaid? It seems to me like the people are actually losing more services because of Medicaid. Can you help elaborate on maybe cost and, can a for-profit hospital be, sustain growth of this gap?
So that's a great question, Mr. Young, and it doesn't seem like it makes sense on its face, but here's how it works. And this is what we do in healthcare, right? So let's say I'm taking care of Mr. Beal and he has no insurance, okay? But I'm taking care of you and you have private insurance, And I'm taking care of Mr. Higdon, who has Medicaid. Mr. Bill's going to pay me nothing. Mr. Higdon's going to pay me 80 cents on the dollar. So I'm going to have to charge you 200 or 250% of the cost of providing care so that I can break even on serving all three of you. So if we expand Medicaid, at least I replace Mr. Bill with somebody who pays me 80 cents on the dollar rather than pays me zero. So that's why the North Carolina Health System Association, the American Hospital Association, the North Carolina Medical Society, and every major provider in this state supports Medicaid expansion. The intent here, and even though Medicaid may pay us 80 cents on the dollar for some services, that's a whole lot better than zero. And our ERs are full of folks who are paying us zero.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
no, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that I had questions about this, and I had a very good long conversation with Senator Corbin about it, and he is in support of it, so that sold my vote right there.
And with your permission, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to read the resolution into the record.
Sure.
This is the Macon County Board of County Commissioners resolution in support of closing North Carolina's health insurance gap. Whereas healthy citizens that have access to affordable health care are key to Macon County economy. Whereas closing the health insurance coverage gap would extend insurance to approximately 1,322 uninsured individuals in Macon County and 750,000 people across the entire state. Whereas closing the health insurance gap would drive new business and healthcare activity in Macon County and create 62 new jobs. Whereas this particular benefits small businesses, healthcare providers, and individuals who support the thriving economy with healthy, productive workforce. Whereas federal funding will cover 90% of the cost for the state's closing the health insurance coverage gap to citizens who need access to affordable health insurance. Therefore, be it resolved that the Macon County Board of County Commissioners urges the North Carolina General Assembly to close the health insurance coverage gap in North Carolina. This resolution shall be effective after its passage and shall be shared with the members of the Macon County General Assembly delegation. Adopted this day, 10th of August 2021. With the reading of the resolution, I make a motion that we support this resolution in closing the North Carolina gap to help those folks in Macon County, not only now, but for in the future, who desperately need this insurance, Mr. Chairman.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Bill, second by Commissioner Shields. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye and raising your right hand. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Aye. Let the record reflect the 4-1 vote. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cook.
Thank you for your time. I learned a lot, actually. All right, moving on to old business, discussion regarding electoral districts. Commissioner Higdon, any further movement on this? Any further thoughts? Anything? Anybody?
Had planned on Eric being here tonight, but he's here. He sent me some emails and Melanie. I just asked a couple questions and still haven't got it solved.
So I'm not real sure what the question is. I mean, yes, it can be done through the statutes. I guess ask me your question and I can answer it, I think, or maybe Melanie can answer.
I got your email late today. My bad, because I don't get my county stuff. I had figured out how to get it on this phone.
Neither's Josh.
We're working with the working class. We're not interested in 2-year terms on this board, I don't think is.
Okay.
What I had mentioned initially is District 2 has 3 positions on this board, staggered terms. Every 2 years, someone in District 2 can seek the county commissioner seat. Whereas in my District 3 and Jimmy's District 1, we wait 4 years, or other interested parties wait 4 years to seek office. My question is there some way we could structure this, maybe with having 3 districts where our election method is district at large. We're nominated in the district. We reside, we're not nominated in the district. We reside in the district based on population. We're elected at large. Everybody in the county votes for us. So my question was, not taken away from anybody on this board, is could we restructure it maybe seems like the simplest thing would be to have a District 1, District 2, and District 3. One candidate from each district. 2 at-large staggered terms from anybody in the county. So that way, anybody in Macon County that wants to seek a commissioner's seat can file for office every 2 years. Now, there'll only be one opening every 2 years. And it may have 40 people sign up for it, but it gives an opportunity. And that was my question. We're living in an age of equity, and right now I thought this would be a good time to bring this up. And then my second question was, how do we, I'm not getting into the Board of Education, and I talked to Chris Baldwin today about, I'd like for it to mirror the Board of Education. When someone asks me, what do I need to do to run for the Board of Education? I don't know what to tell them. And I'm finding out not many people do know. But apparently they have a specific law that Jeff Enlow got passed in Raleigh, that they have to have a candidate from Nantahala, a candidate from Highlands, and then 3 from anywhere in the county, 3 at large. But I'm trying to find that in writing somewhere where I can explain the potential.
I'd like to have that in writing also, if that's...
Pardon?
I'd like to have that in writing also, if that's true. Because I
That
don't
came
have
from
that.
Chris.
That never happened.
Hmm?
It never happened.
Okay.
That's why you don't
I've
have it in
never-
writing.
Okay.
Well, explain it. We got a pro on the board here, so let's refer to him.
Well, the reason, that was just a decision of the school board itself to do that, to make better representation they had nobody on the school board for many, matter of fact, it was only 3 people on the school board. And for many, many years, Mr. Harry Moses, some people might remember that name. Mr. Harry Moses is the one who determined, now this is going back a long time, that they needed to add people to the board, that somebody from Highlands and these outlying districts like Nantahala needed to be there. So they added 2 more seats to the board. To my recollection, that was the history of that. But there's no such, as far as legislation, I don't think you could ever find any that was per legislation. And that school board passed that. Their own, you could go back to that time, that was probably in the late 70s, early 80s. Tommy might remember that, I don't know. He's older than me, I don't know.
2 weeks out.
Yeah.
But there's a very detailed statute related to the Board of Education's election method, and you forwarded that to me. So do we have 2 districts, 3 at large on the Board of Education?
Board of Education, you have 2. You have 1 at large. That's Breedlove's seat.
3 what?
You have 1 at large, and that's Breedlove's seat.
And then the other 4 are
They have to live in that district.
Nantahala, Highlands. Which are the 2 districts?
Why don't you come up, we can't.
I can see it.
This sign language.
You're good, you're good.
You're good. Come on up to the podium so we
I
can
don't know a
what?
whole lot about the school board. I mean,
I just wanted to know so I can explain to the citizens when they ask me what are the requirements to run for school.
all of that's on our website. I can send all of that to you.
And they need to call the school board.
Okay, let's go back to commissioners.
I don't have a lot of information other than, we're just here to facilitate their elections and that part. As far as how they vote, that's on them.
But you have to verify when someone files for office, don't you?
Well, we do, and that's based on their registration.
Okay.
Okay, so I didn't look up the answer to your second question because I wasn't aware of it on the school board.
Oh, no, that's mute point.
Okay, the first one is, yes, what you just said is possible. What you'd have 3 district representatives and 2 at large with staggered terms. Yes, you could do that. But if you did that, you'd have to redistrict your 3 districts so that they're proportionately. In other words, right now you've got the Franklin number 2 district is your biggest, and because proportionally it has 3 members. So what you'd be doing is taking away those 2 from that district, and those would be your at-large, and then you'd have to redraw your lines so that proportionally the population was virtually the same in all 3 districts.
But we could just, as Ronnie said, make a decision, hey, we're going to have 1 from Highlands, 1 from Nantahala.
And 1 from Franklin.
one from Franklin, general area of Franklin, and then 2 at large. If the school board could do it, could we do it?
You can do it.
But I think I'm misunderstanding it, but it'd be based on population if you had 3 districts.
Yeah. So you'd
Two
have,
at
in other
large
words,
matters.
you'd have to read, your 3
Redraw your
districts would be
districts.
redrawn.
So the Highlands District and the Nantahala District would both have to increase
They'd increase.
their geographical area to be able to be equal in population.
They all have to be equal in population.
How could the school board do it and we can't do it?
You said you could do it.
Pardon?
You said you could do it.
No. But the school boards is different. Their districts
I don't know
are
about
different,
school
so,
boards,
yeah.
but-
Well,
So
the
they're
statute
totally
is
different.
expansive. I mean, there's probably more statutes related to the Board of Education than there is the Board of Commissioners. But can we do that? I mean, Jimmy's concerned about not increasing the geography of the Highlands. Of course, you're already at Flats, Smith Bridge,
Colsaja,
Ellijay, and Highlands.
Sugar Fork. Sugar Fork, yeah.
And although we reside in the districts that we represent everybody in Macon County when we vote.
Sure.
So that's I just want to know, is this board agreeable to giving anyone in the county an opportunity to seek office every 2 years, is my question. Following that up, if so, can we do that by resolution? We're great at resolutions as opposed to a referendum.
Well, there would be a resolution to put it on the referendum.
It has to be voted on by the
It has to be voted on by the public. So you'd pass a resolution
Yes.
outlining all the terms of what we talked about and where the lines are being drawn, and then that would be put on as a referendum for vote by the citizens.
Mr. Chairman, this system that we have now has worked extremely well for many, many years. When the board went from 3 to 5, that's when that's how it was determined. So it's worked well to now. I think it's an effort and fruition and waste of the time of this board to try to fix something that ain't broke.
Well, if you're in District 2, Ronnie, you can file for office every 2 years. If you're in District 1 or 3, you can.
I mean, if you wanted to have the attorney do whatever, but in my opinion, and the opinion of people I've talked to, this is just if you put it on a resolution, I think, because the majority of the people live in District 3, that's when you have 3 representatives. And you always have one who stay. Gary and I will be up in the next election. Josh will still be here representing District 2. There'll be 2 representatives. There'll be a new representative elected from Highlands, or
District 1.
or Mr. Chairman, you'll be re-elected from Highlands. So it works pretty well. I mean, I don't see why we're talking about something to fix it ain't broke.
Well, it ain't broke, Rod. You don't even understand what I'm asking. Is if you're District 2, you could seek office every 2 years. Why can the people in District 1 and District 3 not be afforded that same opportunity?
Well, because you go back to, well, we don't have to get in the weeds, but you start drawing redistricting lines, that's going to take not only a great expense, but it also is going to be very complicated in this county.
It could be done with the mapping department.
No, he can't. Even though first of all, we have to wait till the new census comes out before any of that can even be talked about. So,
whose ruling is that?
The census?
No, whose ruling we have to wait till the census comes out?
I think that just makes common sense.
Well,
you don't know where your population is until the census comes out.
We do it right now. You can go to the mapping office and do it in 10 minutes.
But it's not accurate. You got a new census that's 10 years old. You got a census that's 10 years old. You're going to have a new census that comes out in...
Well, they're working on that, we hope next year.
Yeah, first of the year, so.
Paul, I think the confusion is coming is there's a difference between population and geography. And unfortunately, District 1 and District 3 don't have the population to shrink their districts. The only way they could make it work and what you're saying and what you're proposing, which I totally agree with, I think it would be fair, that way to be fairer than what the system is now across the county. Problem is you're going to have to increase the size of the districts of 1 and 3 to make it equal across the county.
But is that a negative thing?
I don't like it, and I don't mind saying why. It's because it increases the chance that someone from Highlands might not be sitting on the sport. And I think it's of dire importance to have someone that lives in Macon sitting on the sport.
That someone from LJ or Scaly could be sitting on it now.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. But it increases the area that happening.
I've just heard a number of people say.
Oh, I agree with your philosophy 100%. I think it would be fair. I wish.
Well, what do we do about it?
I don't know. I don't know how the school board gets by with that. I don't know how that works.
I'll do some research on that.
Yeah. Okay. We'll let it hover and let it flutter. We'll discuss. But I'm kind of curious to see how the school board does it.
That was just an educational thing for me, Melanie, definitely.
Was me too, a little bit.
If are we at a point to where we just drop this completely, or do we pursue it? I mean,
I'm curious. I'm curious how the Board of Education does it. I'm curious now, so I don't know how that works. I don't know which way I'd be in favor of.
well, even though we reside in districts, we're nominated by the whole county, by everybody in the county.
Sure.
I think it's good to live in the district, but I get more conversation from people out of district than I do people in district. So, I'm in favor of pursuing, moving forward, just based on the sole thing that anybody in Macon County, you don't have to live in District 2 to seek office every 2 years. I just think it's a fair thing for everybody in the county to be afforded that opportunity. Opposite of what Mr. Bill's logic is, but...
Anyone else? Mr. Shields, Mr. Young?
I'm curious to see how the school board pans out, but I can see both sides. So.
Well,
we don't have to take any action tonight. We just let it float, and if you don't mind bringing us back a little information on that.
I don't care about the Board of Education.
Well, I'm curious to know how they do it. So.
That I would think would be from a charter.
And is it the same district?
It would be
So I don't know.
Charters.
I don't know.
I mean, what do other counties do?
Well, there's all over every county. And I think I gave y'all a brochure on election methods of every county in North Carolina, and we're a district at large. Reside in the district, elected at large.
And those counties are done.
It's hard enough to count the 30 again.
So we just keep. We
just let us sit there. I don't know. We're not pressed to do anything right now.
Only if we could do it by resolution, we could, or if we have to do it by referendum, we've got to have that ready for 2022.
Along with a sales tax increase.
I'll just keep harping on it. I've kind of like moving your office. I've been harping on it for 6 years, and you're still in the hole. So I should have got approval from Mr. Bill, and I didn't.
All right. Item 10B, Nantahala.
He should have.
Or at least some guidance there. Here we go on another one. Nantahala? We want to keep moving forward. We appropriated money last time, Derek.
We got it cleaned up, cleaned out.
Looks good. Thank you, Neil.
Maintenance did a fine job. They always do.
Within the budget?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we'll be bringing money back. But we're just to that point, we can only go so far. Like we've said, and I think as far as getting the property cleaned up, getting the building cleaned out, so we've done all we can do till this point, till we decide what's going to go in there.
What's the next step? Understand that the library's willing to go in there?
No, the library approached the school board asking for permission to go to put the library at the school. That decision will be rendered at the next school board meeting. Whether the school would, Mr. Tass, all the community leaders from Nantahala and the library board asked the school board if they could put permission to put the library at the school. And so The school board is taking under advisement, and that will be voted on, the way I understand it, from the superintendent at their next meeting.
Well, we need to be, is there an architect that we could engage either to make it a community building or a community building / library?
Well, I think that's going to rest on, what direction we're going to do if the school board approves for the library to go at the school. We'll need to know the direction to give the architect before we hire the architect.
Well, what I'm getting is the school board and the school system does not want the library on their property, but
Well, they're going to have a chance to vote up or down on it, so then we'll know.
So we'll delay it for another month.
I would think that if the school board's going to make a decision, then we'll know following the school board meeting, and that if the board desires, we could have a resolution exempting architectural services ready to go at the next meeting.
Contingent upon the school board action.
Contingent, we'll know which way to go at that point.
Thank you, Mr. Benedict. Thanks, Jack.
Thank you, Paul. All right, new business, change orders number 3, number 4, number 5 on the Macon Middle School renovation project. Mr. Jack Morgan, welcome, Jack.
Hello. How are you guys?
Good, good. Thank you for your patience with us.
That's okay. A lot to listen to up here.
That's for sure.
Have 3 change orders. Number 3, so far we've had change orders, didn't cost nothing. These are going to cost us a little bit. Number 3, what this is for is the library stair treads going up to the mezzanine. They're green, teal, and it's not going to match anything we're doing with the school. Well, that bar right off. That bar right off. I understand that, but yeah, we thought about that too. But,
and you're in charge of planning. Is he in charge of planning?
Yeah.
Okay, Jack.
But anyway, they're rather expensive, but they last forever. And this time we'll use gray, and we think that will probably go with anything. Teal just doesn't. That's the first one for $16,366. Number 4 is for revising the way we're going to replace the windows. The windows, unfortunately, on part of the building were not installed as per the drawings at the time. And those frames, we were just going to jerk them out, put new windows in there. Those frames are absolutely structural. They're holding up everything above it. So we can't really do that because you got 2 layers of brick above that portion, and there's no way to hold the opening when we take the windows out.
We've never seen nothing exactly like that. The windows work as linens.
Yes, they do.
Never seen nothing. Never seen nothing like it.
What we can do, they're spot welded in. The frames in those structural frames are spot welded in, puddle welds. We can cut that loose, move the window frame out, and install new frames and make repairs as we have to those existing frames.
How much?
Okay, that's $9,830.
Okay.
No brainer.
And the last one, just to be honest with you, I've tried to do a lot of horse trading out there. We've done this and not done that to try to make this as economical as possible. So with this one, we traded out some things to get some things. We have some doors that the hinges are bolted to the face of the door. And there's no real way to do anything with those doors. They're beat all to pieces. So we're going to replace 2 single doors. They go into the restrooms right off the gymnasium. Mr. Shields was out there today looking, and he saw them. And those into the band room that we just can't make them look like anything. The other doors, there was a bunch more that we were going to replace, but we can refinish those and they look pretty doggone good. So we're not replacing all of them, but we are replacing those. We're going to have to sand and restain the oak in the mezzanine and the library area. It kind of looks pretty bad now that we've redone everything else. So we're going to resand all that oak, restain it. The guardrails going up, the handrails going upstairs really have taken a lot of wear over the years. That's part of this. We did away with the wheelchair lift up to the stage platform because it's not any way to do that. because this won't work. So somewhere down the road, we'll probably end up building a ramp in one of those stage storage areas to be able to get up there. That's the best answer. That's a $18,000 credit, I believe. We had to replace a wall in the admin area and doors with that, and we have 2 antique water coolers that we've got to replace. One, when you go in the reception area on the left, it's the side of it's rusted out. And there's one in the cafeteria area that is just one level. It's not ADA compliant, and we're recommending to put back the high-low ADA compliant and also have the bottle fill attachment. Most kids bring their water bottles and carry them around all day, and they'll be able to fill them up there instead of having to go to the bathroom, which is a bad idea. That one is $2,792.
Or contingency.
Yes, in the project, we have $817,800 of contingency. One of the budget amendments I added on that you'll approve later was to take $28,978 from that project contingency and move it over to the construction line.
Before we vote, Mr. Chairman, you've got to say something about how fortunate we are to have Jack Morgan over there every day. And if you've not been over and looked at the project, everybody should go. I think the contractor, it appears Jack is doing an outstanding job.
They're doing outstanding, and they're ahead of schedule. We've already turned over the admin area, the library area, the upstairs mezzanine area. They're going to have 2 classes up there while we're renovating. The cafeteria is completed. We had water come through a big deluge the other night that we weren't ready for, so we had to repair some drywall. Other than that, it's completed. The kitchen's completed. We've got to run an interlock on our fan, but that's all. We missed that one. But that's ready to go. So in phase 2, we already got demolition completed on 4 of the classrooms. Got 3 more to go. So we're ready to go back with that. That one will be completed ahead of schedule. It wasn't due to be completed till around Christmas time, and I think we'll be through about the middle of the end of September.
The school is starting, met with the superintendent today. School starts 2 weeks from yesterday, something like that.
Yeah.
So it looks like we're going to be in pretty good shape. I mean, there's still going to be some work to be done, but for all in all, what do you think, Jack? Pretty good?
Pretty good. Pretty good shape.
Safety-wise, it looks fine.
It does. The biggest issue the contractors have had, and it's our problem now, is the material supply. We had a serious foobar with our HVAC right off the bat, and they said they'd move us ahead of the line for a lot of money, but we couldn't do that. We're not going to do that. So we'll just wait on those, but we're going to have a Band-Aid to fix that in the meantime. But everything's good. Everything's good.
Motion to approve the change orders is presented, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Commissioner Shields. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you, John.
So where are we at on our bids for the other building?
Let's see.
18th.
We are opening bids the 18th on the Macon Middle School locker room.
Yes.
So we'll be bringing those to you at your September meeting. And then the 25th, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, is the due date for the RFQ on the Franklin High School.
Do we know we're going to have bidders? Or we?
Yes, they had a pre-bid meeting. We had 2 bidders show up.
Oh, you had 2? Good.
Yes. First go around, we only had 1, so by statute, we had to re-advertise it. But even if we only get 1 bid at bid date, we're still good. We can move forward and accept the bid.
Thank you, Jack, for all you do.
Jack, let me just say one thing. Observation that I've had between you and the new principal there has been excellent. Appreciate what you're doing with him. He's in the learning mode too.
He is. He's tackling the bull when I move into that place.
Thank you, Jack.
Agreement to provide substance abuse and mental health services with no wrong door.
Of course, we're really involved in No Wrong Door, and if you see the reports, it's No Wrong Door continues to be one of the leaders in the county for people with substance abuse and mental illness. We're now doing assessments at No Wrong Door. Of course, finding a place for these folks to to go get treatment, but we are getting treatment set up. We're having classes there now. All the folks and all the volunteers at No Wrong Door thank this board for and the community for the continued support financially and in otherwise. So if you've not been there and worked a little bit, I encourage everybody to go. Mr. Shields has been there quite a bit. It's amazing what you see in a day. And so we really appreciate it, and Lori will give you the detail.
This contract is a combination of last year's contract plus there was a First Amendment and restatement to the contract that occurred. So I blended those two together, had them reviewed by Eric, had them reviewed by John Henning, because the town is a party to this agreement. The county provides $20,000. The town provides $20,000, so we have $40,000 budgeted, and No Wrong Door invoices us $3,333 per month. And they provide, Robbie could elaborate on this part more than me, but you know, they provide services directly. They come to the jail, correct, and they're providing services to those inmates that have substance abuse, mental disorders, and then try to help them, you know, when they do eventually get out of jail to, you know, get on the path to get the help they need and move on with their lives. So it's a very, you know, it's a great program. And again, it's same contract and amendment as last fiscal year, same dollar amount, and that the funds are budgeted.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Commissioner Bill. Second by Commissioner Shields, sorry. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It's the best deal in town. As far as saving taxpayers' money.
And we're seeing some success. Robbie can speak to it better than anybody.
If you all would like, we'll have our graduation for our next Primes for Life class. That's the best day to come and listen to. That's when they completed the class. It'll be a blessing to you. If you want to know about No Wrong Door, it's best to hear it from those that are receiving the services that are provided. And those are inmates that are incarcerated that graduate from this class. And if you're interested, just give me a call anytime.
Next Friday being this Friday or next Friday?
A week from the day of the class next week. So next Friday.
Can we get a motion to approve the consent agenda with the additions of budget amendments number 32 and number 33 in front of you? Something someone would like to discuss? All right, team. What did you ask me?
A motion.
I need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion by Commissioner Igdon, second by Commissioner Shields. All in favor?
Aye.
I don't think we have any appointments to my knowledge. We are going into closed session for the purposes of attorney-client privilege and anything else, Mr. Attorney?
That's under 143-318.11.
You're right.
I don't think it'll take 5-10 minutes.
I'm gonna hold you to
Unless
that.
it's-
I'm gonna hold you to that, Eric.
All right.
Email you.
Just help me with that right there. Others in the air. Others in the air. Are we expecting any action?
Chairman, can we ask the sheriff to come to this one too?
Sure.
Can we do, how long's yours gonna be?
5 minutes.
Just wait from 10 to 5, like hold to it.
Are we expecting any action when we come out of here? Anyone? Mr. Attorney? Can I get a motion to go into closed
So moved,
session?
Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Commissioner Bill, second by Commissioner Young. All in favor? Aye.
I don't know what that's.
Potential property acquisition.
Oh, okay, then we need to say that in the motion that we're also doing
Messages on your phone?
attorney-client privilege and property acquisition.
I'll message you how the school board does it.
I'll make that motion.
Need an amendment to your motion. Attorney-client privilege and
A property acquisition.
property acquisition. Second by Commissioner Phil Shields. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Thank you.
Mike?
Yeah.
Here's how they do it. They got
This year.
I got you. Okay. Thank you.
We haven't adjourned.
Mom, I did.
Where are you going?
I can call for a motion.
I know.
You have come a cub behind her.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Here she comes.
Go, brother.
Can I get a motion to
Paul, you in favor
Yeah.
of adjourning?
Yeah, well.
motion by Commissioner Young, second by Commissioner Shields. All in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
I need your signature on the